Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I wanted to address something I've addressed here and there, and I still think it's pretty important. I often get comments or messages chastising me for, quote, making narcissists sound like human beings or making it sound like they are victims. Well, first of all, I'm not making anyone sound like anything. They are human beings. And technically, they are also victims. Now, before you start typing your comments on this video, cussing me up and down, just hear me out. They aren't victims of you, as they claim. They're victims of their own disorder and their own skewed perception. Understanding the disorder so you can deal with it in a way which causes the least amount of stress and hurt on yourself is not possible without understanding that. You cannot understand their mindset or why they're behaving the way they are unless you understand that they're also victims of this disorder just like you are. If you can't understand these things, you can't figure out how to react in a way that results in the least amount of problems. Now, of course, we always say that simply staying away from them and not interacting with them is absolutely the best thing to do. However, there are times when that is not possible. I mean, no one really needs to be taught how to ignore somebody or how to cut somebody out of their life. What people do sometimes need to be taught is how to handle the interactions with narcissists that cannot be avoided. That is the majority of what I try to teach with this show, and there's no way to teach that without explaining why it's necessary to do those things in the first place. Teaching skills with no understanding of why the skills are necessary or why they work is only teaching half of the information. If someone has an understanding of these things, they can absorb the information better and they can see why it's necessary to do something a certain way. For instance, if we just say, ignore the narcissist accusations and stop defending yourself, it doesn't explain why someone should do that, which therefore reduces the likelihood that they actually will, especially considering that most reactions to the narcissist's abuse and cruelty are totally natural. They're kind of like a knee-jerk, and they're totally understandable. Now, if we say, ignore the narcissist accusations and stop defending yourself, because not only is it a waste of time since they don't want to believe you, but every time you acknowledge those accusations, you're validating them, and every time you defend yourself, you're feeding into the narcissist's need for attention, all of which ensure that they're never going to stop. This creates a much fuller picture of the situation. It lets people know why defending yourself not only doesn't help anything, it actually makes the problem worse. It's the same with any skill. Take a skill that you learn at a job, like at a factory. A person who can run the machine but has no knowledge of how it works isn't much help when something goes wrong. Teaching someone why it works to run the machine the way they run it makes them better equipped to deal with problems when they arise. People who understand the narcissist mindset and why they think the things they do are much better equipped to deal with them. This is especially true that the understanding is necessary because the methods you would use to resolve problems with other people do not work with the narcissist. Often they actually make the problem worse, and you cannot resolve a problem you don't understand. So understanding is very, very important. Now, having said all that, I often wonder why people resist or even get angry at the idea that narcissists are in fact victims. Just because someone is a victim, does that mean we should feel some type of way about them? I say, yes, the narcissist is a victim. So what? I'm not sure why their being a victim of this disorder matters or why some people have issues with that being true. It doesn't change anything. The result is still the same. They're manipulative, toxic, and abusive, so stay away from them if you possibly can. And if you can't, defeat their abuse and all their toxic games by refusing to participate in either one. Understanding that they are indeed a victim too may free you from your hatred of the narcissist, but it doesn't mean that you should suddenly rethink your approach to dealing with them. Being a victim of abuse or of a disorder doesn't give somebody a pass for anything. It doesn't mean people should stay with them to be abused or sacrifice themselves to make the narcissist happy. No one thinks that except narcissists, and they may not know it, but they're totally wrong. So what does it matter? Refusing to acknowledge that they are human and that they are victims does nothing but handicap our own understanding of the situation and, by extension, our handling of it. I don't see the sense in that. Most of us would like to be as informed as possible about any problem that comes up in our lives. It also actually disturbs me to see such dehumanization of narcissists. It's one thing to hate somebody because they've abused or harmed you and your family. It's another to not even see this individual as a human being. That's too close to how narcissists actually operate for my comfort, and I really think that may be the reason some people have issues with seeing the narcissist as a victim. That humanizes the narcissist, and it makes hating and dehumanizing them more difficult. Doing these things makes people feel safer and less vulnerable. Hating narcissists is understandable, but it really does nothing but hurt you in the end. This isn't just some new age love everybody thing I'm saying to you here either. It's true. Healing cannot begin until hatred ends. And people who refuse to let go of their hatred are people who are obstructing their own healing. You can't move on until you've moved on emotionally, and hating the person prevents that from happening. Hate is an intense emotional state, and it requires and consumes an enormous amount of energy. This drains people whether they realize it or not. That is another thing understanding the narcissist does. It helps free you from hate. You look at this person, and instead of seeing a vicious, hateful monster full of malicious intent, you see them for what they really are. A scared, lost, and angry child who cannot emotionally navigate the world at all or meet any of their own even basic needs. A shell of a person with no identity or understanding of anything except primitive emotions and childish needs. Now, this doesn't mean that you feel sorry for them or want to help them. On the contrary, what actually happens is that you see that this is a person who will never understand anything you're saying to them, and you stop worrying about it because you realize, once and for all, you finally realize that it's pointless to even bother. So yes, narcissists are victims, but it doesn't really matter in the end. Most abusers were victims at one time. It does not excuse their behavior. It's kind of like the mean dog analogy that I've used a time or two. If a mean dog became mean because he suffered years of abuse, he's a victim. Does that mean you should let him bite you because he can't help it? Of course not. You acknowledge his sad existence, but does that somehow make him less dangerous? Nope. It doesn't change anything except your understanding of the situation and your ability to decide how to deal with it. Understanding narcissists, acknowledging their humanity, and the fact that they are a victim of their own disorder doesn't somehow magically erase the wrong they've done or give them a free pass to act however they want. It simply increases your knowledge and ability to deal with the situation. That's it. The idea that victims cannot be held responsible for the things they do is a narcissistic one, and it's one that society really, really needs to let go of. The idea that people need to sacrifice themselves for this victim is also a narcissistic one, and it's not true. That's not healthy, and it isn't right. The idea that anyone who's abusive or does things wrong is somehow not a human being is a narcissistic idea too. All of these false ideas simply need to be discarded along with the rest of their phony perceptions and crazy conclusions. The goal is to stay reasonable, rational, and logical, not fall into the narcissist's way of thinking. If that happens, we've failed. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. Try not to hate me too much for this one. I take appointments online and over the phone Monday through Friday. So if you're interested in speaking with me, you can visit littleshaman.org and click the Book an Appointment tab to go ahead and do that. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.